Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaiya. Today I'm going to be talking about the brand new Fulci album, Duck Face Killings. I'm really excited to talk about this album today. I feel like not a lot of people are really mentioning this band, and I just recently discovered them. So I'm very excited to talk about them today, to highlight them for you, because I really think that you should listen to them. Fulci, if you are not familiar, is a brutal death metal band from Italy, and they actually get their name from the legendary Italian horror film director Lucio Fulci, and all of their music is based on his infamous gory horror movies. I got interested in Lucio Fulci's movies a few months ago when I watched his Cat in the Brain movie, which I did for my Last Days of Humanity debut video, and ever since then I have really found myself intrigued with who Lucio Fulci was and his impact on the horror scene as well as the gore grind metal scene, because without really knowing it, he unintentionally inspired a lot of metal bands with their art and sound production for their future records. This marks Fulci's 5th album after a career of about 9 years. Fulci has been bouncing around labels with each album, with this new record being under $20 spin. Their previous 4th record was released on Maggot Stomp, which I feel like is kind of like a stepping stone label. We saw this with 200 Stab Wounds, how they were on Maggot Stomp, and now with their most recent release, they're on Metal Blade Records. It's the same deal for Fulci. They were on Maggot Stomp for their previous record, and now they're on $20 spin. So the inspiration for this 14-track album is Fulci's 1982 movie, The New York Ripper, which is about a police lieutenant who is tracking a sadistic killer who slashes women with a switchblade and straight razor. And fun fact about this movie is it was actually banned for 20 years upon its release in the UK for being so gruesome and gory. This record was mastered by Arthur Risk, who also worked with bands such as Power Trip, Cavalera, and Tomb Mold. And interestingly enough, the cover artwork was done by Wes Benscotter, who worked with Mortician, Nile, and Cattle Decapitation. You should also just go and look at Wes Scotter's resume, because it's pretty impressive the amount of big bands that he has worked for. So if you're a fan of the Terracite cover, Hacked Up for Barbecue, or Black Seeds of Vengeance from Nile, you would probably really enjoy this cover art from Fulci. Starting this album off, we have the first 2 tracks, Vile Butchery and A Blade in the Dark. The first song starts us off with a sample from the movie. The song features a very catchy chorus, and automatically I could tell that the production on this album was really good. I mean, honestly, Arthur Risk did an amazing job. He really made sure that Fiore's vocals were one of the centerpieces for this record. His enunciation is really good. You can clearly hear him. It's not overpowering in any way for the album, but it's just very well balanced. The second track, A Blade in the Dark, is one of 3 ambient instrumental tracks. These are featured throughout the record and performed by a group called TV Crimes. And I'll link this band's Bandcamp down below, because they're kind of an interesting group in their own right. This is basically a group that does a lot of ambient, nostalgic synth type tracks. So they did all of the instrumental tracks on here, and it's the perfect ambience for what Fulci was trying to achieve with this record, because it's that, you know, true crime in New York during the early 1980s, exactly what the setting was for the New York Ripper. There were a lot of tracks on this record that had some really great hooks, great riffage, and some groovy death metal breakdowns. Fulci also experimented with a lot of gore grind and grindcore layered vocals. You can really hear these in tracks like Human Scalp Condition and the title track, Duck Face Killings. Fiore's vocals remind me a lot of Sven from Aborted. Also, they have this like fresh melodic instrumental sound that reminds me a lot of what Crypta did on Shades of Sorrow. Now, through all of this experimentation, Fulci did have one dud song for me. This was their 6th track, Knife, which honestly, it really was the weakest song on this album for me, because it was hip-hop death metal. So they did have a guest vocalist. His name was Lord Goat from Non-Fixian, which is an underground hip-hop group from Brooklyn, New York that started around the mid-1990s. So in their own right, Nonfixian is considered to be this household name in the underground hip-hop scene, but I'm just not sure how well Lord Goat's vocals really worked on this album, at least for me. I feel like this song totally disrupts the entire ambient, true crime, nostalgia vibes that are being built within this audible story. It really does feel like a jump scare. You're not really expecting it, and it's quite a shame because the beginning instrumental for this song, Knife, is really good. You think it's just going to be another instrumental track that is, again, that ambient, creepy, true crime instrumental sound, and it is that, but then it goes into Lord Goat's vocals and it's very off-putting. I don't feel like it goes very well. It doesn't really match. I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think of that track, because maybe it worked for you, and if it did, I'm very happy for you. I'm just not totally into that style of death metal, you know, but maybe it worked for you. Other than Knife, I pretty much enjoyed the entire album. I did walk away from this record with several favorites. Not every single song, you know, is absolutely memorable, but they're still jams, you know, like they're not absolute garbage. I do enjoy how short and sweet this album is. Like I mentioned earlier, reminds me of 200 Stab Wounds, but I enjoyed how short the songs were overall. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It paints a short story, and then, you know, it's got a lot of replay value. And honestly, I think that this record would be a really great introduction for a newbie to get into BDM. Like, I think it's just very easy to get into, and so that's another thing where some people might not really enjoy this record because it is quite safe, you know. It's good, it's a good introduction into BDM for the newbies out there. I also really appreciated the time and effort that Fulci put into setting up the ambience for this album, because it's you know, based on a Fulci film. It is Fulci. It's all about this director, and it's set in the 80s, and it's true crime, and all of the instrumentals and the synths that they use sounds like you're watching a horror movie. I don't know how else you would say it. It just sounds like you're watching a film. It feels like, it sounds like you're watching a film or something. I don't know. It's a very great audible listening experience. It's a lot of nostalgia. And can we also talk about the saxophone solo on the last song? Yes, you heard me right. There is a beautimous saxophone solo on the 14th track. Saxophones just sound really sexy. The solo they have on this record is what closes us out. It's perfect. It's a perfect closure to this album. Totally not something I was expecting, and it's a perfect closer to the album. All in all, I give this album a 7.5 out of 10. There's some solid tracks and some great experimentation on this record, but with the vibe shift on Knife and a few good but not super memorable tracks, I think it does drop it down in quality just a little bit for me. But if you're a fan of 200 Stab Wounds, Mortician, Immolation, or Dying Fetus, you would really like this record, I think. Fulci is what I like about brutal death metal. I really enjoy that kind of low and slow vibe. It doesn't always have to be blast beats and constant tempo changes and things like that. Of course, I like stuff like that, but sometimes I just like to have something simple. Let me know what you think down below about the new Fulci album, Duckface Killings. Did you listen to it already? What did you think about it? Did you enjoy it? Did you have any favorite tracks? Love to hear your thoughts as always. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, you guys.